Yeah, yesterday you were explaining to me that consciousness was dimensionless. And I'm struggling to see how we get from there to, at some point, we have the illusion that time and dimensions exist within consciousness. And we're all having this experience as localized perforations, or whatever you called it earlier. And within that, most of the time I'm in touch with being, which feels like it's a personal thing. My mind and body feel serene, peaceful, happy, if you like. But I guess at a deeper level, it's almost like a neutral. You know, if I connected at a deeper level, I would connect with the dimensionless consciousness in some way. And I'm having trouble connecting all that together.
You're having trouble connecting
from the personal to the
with yes. Yeah. You remind me of the story of the American who was travelling in Wales and wanted to get to London and knocked on the door of a Welsh farmer's door and asked the way to London, and he thought for a while and he said, "I'm sorry, you can't get there from here." So it's like that, I'm afraid. There's an explanatory gap.
So what you're saying is beyond a certain point that the mind can't comprehend what's going on,
yeah,
and it's an act of faith.
Yeah, and there are these two points of view. There's the point of view of infinite consciousness and the point of view of the finite mind. And the point of view of infinite consciousness is not really a point of view. The finite mind is a point in infinite consciousness, and it's a point from which the mind views. The infinite consciousness, by definition, is not a point of view. It's an infinite field. We can't even call it a field. It's an infinite dimensionless presence. So what is infinite consciousness's experience?
I guess the light of infinite consciousness coming through.
Infinite consciousness, it doesn't have any experience. Infinite consciousness knows nothing, because in order to let's do it. This is not easy to explain, let alone understand. Let's do it with perception first. Perception, in this case, seeing. Let's do it. In order to see something, we have to stand at a distance from it. Yes, we can all see this glass because we are standing at a distance from it. The reason we can't see our eyes is because there's no distance from our eyes to our eyes. And there needs to be a distinction between the subject and object in order to see something. The reason why we can see a tree is because we stand at a distance from the tree. I see the tree. And for this conversation, I'm just presuming that it is this body that sees the tree. It's not technically correct, but it's sufficient for this explanation. The reason we can see the glass is because we, the perceiver, stand at a distance from the glass. But the one thing the eyes cannot see, the only thing the eyes cannot see, is themselves. Because in order to see something, you must stand apart from that thing in subject-object relationship. Okay, now apply exactly the same example to knowing something. Just as it's only possible to see or hear something, or let's stick to seeing. It's only possible to see something when we stand apart from that thing in subject-object relationship. So it's only possible to know something in subject-object relationship. That is why all our experience, thoughts, images, feelings, sensations, perceptions, memories, and so on, they all take place in subject-object relationship. I know my thoughts. I feel sad. I perceive the tree. I love you, and so on. It's all subject-object relationship. We can only know something that is at a distance from ourselves. Now, what happens when we try to know ourselves? It's like trying to see our eyes. When you try to see your eyes, there's a blind spot there. It's empty. There's not the same thing when we try to know ourselves. We can't know ourselves objectively. We can be ourselves knowingly, but we can't know ourselves objectively because we're too close to ourselves. We can't stand apart from ourselves to know ourselves. We can only know something that is other than ourselves. Okay, now with that as a background, go to infinite consciousness. And now think about what infinite consciousness knows. Remember that in order to know anything, let alone perceive anything, one must stand apart from that thing, either to perceive it or know it.
I guess it knows thoughts, perceptions.
No, it would have to stand apart from the thought and the perception. It would have to be separate from the thought and the perception. A thought or perception can only be known by a finite mind, a separate subject of experience. I know my thoughts. I, the finite mind, know my thoughts. But consciousness cannot stand apart from anything. Where would it go? How would consciousness stand apart from something in order to know it? It would have to separate itself from that thing and know it in subject-object relationship.
I thought these localized mind bodies were ways of consciousness.
Well, they are, but that's another matter. I'm talking about infinite consciousness, not a localized mind. I'm talking about infinite consciousness. What does infinite consciousness know? It doesn't know anything. It cannot know anything. It has no knowledge. It is what we call everything, but it knows nothing.
So where does this illusion that we all
deeper
live in
answer
come from?
This is the deeper answer to the conversation I had with Benedict yesterday. I thought it was too off the top of the mountain for the first evening. I thought, if I said this on the first evening, I thought half of you would leave. You see, consciousness doesn't know our suffering. Consciousness doesn't know the world. Consciousness doesn't know anything. It is what we call everything, but it knows nothing. There can only be knowledge or experience from the point of view of a finite mind. So from our point of view, from the point of view of the finite mind, there are thoughts, there are feelings, there is a world, there is suffering. All of that is from the point of view of the mind. But infinite consciousness by itself knows nothing of the finite mind. A finite mind is only such from its own point of view.
So the finite mind that can know consciousness, but it doesn't work the other way around.
No, the finite mind can't know consciousness. Only consciousness can know consciousness, and consciousness can only know itself by being itself. It can't stand apart from itself and know itself in subject-object relationship. If I were to ask you the question now, Glenn, are you aware? What would you say? Okay, so what is it that knows the experience of being aware?
The fact that I'm conscious.
No, a fact can't know something. What is it that knows that you are aware? What is it that has the experience of being aware?
I'm not sure anymore.
You're doing really well, Glenn. This is really the deep end. Whatever it is that knows that we are aware must itself be aware, otherwise it couldn't know that we are aware. In other words, the fact that there is awareness is known by awareness. The fact that we know that we are aware is evidence that awareness is self-aware, aware of itself. And this, so we have the experience of being aware. We, awareness, have the experience of being aware of ourselves. But that is the only experience there is. It doesn't, that experience, when I ask you the question, are you aware? Pause. Yes. In that pause, you, awareness, relaxed the focus of your attention from the content of experience, and you came back to yourself, you tasted yourself, you knew yourself, you recognized yourself. That experience is the most profound experience it is possible to have. It didn't seem like much, but it is the most profound experience it's possible to have. And it's the only experience there is that doesn't take place in subject-object relationship. In other words, it's the only experience there is that is not mediated through the finite mind. Every other experience we have, the sound of my voice, the sight of this room, the feeling of sorrow, the taste of a strawberry, every other experience we have is mediated through the finite mind and is subject to its limitations, and therefore is a distorted version of reality. The only experience there is that is not mediated through the finite mind and therefore distorted by it is awareness's knowledge of itself. So when you ask the question, are you aware? Pause, and you go to the experience of being aware. At that moment, we taste reality as it is, and it's the only experience there is in which reality is available to us directly.
So when you say the deep end, peace and serenity that I experience when I'm meditating and outside of meditation, is that as deep as we can go, as localized?
Well, the peace that you feel is that the nature of consciousness shining through your mind and your body. It's not really, it's the, remember I said thinking and at some stage, I said thinking and imagining were a watercolor wash over the white paper of being, and then a slightly darker watercolor wash sensing and perceiving. Well, when you feel peace, you feel that it's in your mind or in your body. It's not, it's the white paper of being. It's what Shelley called the white radiance of eternity. It's the white radiance of eternity shining through your body-mind. That's the experience of peace and happiness.
Thank you, Rupert. I'll leave it there for now. Thank you.
So just to say one thing, why I told the story about the Welsh farmer. You can't get there from here. These two perspectives I've given you, that consciousness is experience and the experience from the finite mind. In Vedantic philosophy, this is called Ajātivāda and Vivartavāda. And nobody ever speaks about Ajātivāda because there's nothing to say about it. You cannot teach. You cannot have a teaching based on that because there's nothing to say. Consciousness knows nothing. What would you say about that? So all teachings, either consciously or unconsciously, take a step down from Ajātivāda. Ajātivāda is the absolute truth, but there's nothing to say about it. We cannot say a single word about it. My best formulation of it is consciousness knows nothing but is what we call everything. But even that, I could fault it if so any teaching, any formulation, even the very highest teachings, Ramana Maharshi and the Mandukya Upanishad, Gaudapada's character, they all take a step down from the top of the mountain and speak from the point of view of Vivartavāda, the finite mind, the point of view of appearances. And all the teachings, and this teaching speaks from this point of view, from the point of view of the thoughts and feelings, sensations, perceptions, and appropriately so. But there's a gap You can't connect the two. There's a gap. You can't go from illusion to reality. You can't get to London from Wales. The mind has to surrender. The mind just has to surrender.
So there is a gap, a sort of faith gap, if you like. Or
there's a kind of faith gap, a kind of explanatory gap that we can do our very best to close, but you can never completely close it. You can never completely reconcile it. Why? Because from the point of view of the absolute reality, and it's not possible to understand this. I don't understand this. But from the point of view of the absolute reality, infinite consciousness, remember I said for infinite consciousness to know anything, it must stand apart from that thing, but it cannot stand apart from anything. Where would it go? So from the point of view of infinite consciousness, in other words, from the point of view of reality, it has no experience of the finite mind. It knows nothing of a finite. There is no finite mind from the point of view of infinite reality. Well, tell that to someone on the street. There is no finite mind, or even in worse, there is no suffering. You can't say that. You can't turn on the television and watch the news and say there is no suffering. You cannot say that. Even in these circles, these very rarefied, refined circles, it would be irreverent. It would be disrespectful. One cannot say that. I can't say that. But at the same time, we understand that from the point of view of reality, that there is no world, there is no mind, there is no suffering. That's absolutely true. But that is not, it's not a nihilistic philosophy. It doesn't deny the reality of what we feel, the suffering, the sorrow, the joy. It doesn't deny our everyday life. But at the same time, we're this unusual group of people, we want to know the truth. So we're not afraid to go to the very, very top of the mountain, even though we can't square that with our experience in the world. We just can't square it. We have to just surrender.
Thank you.
Thank you for your questions, Glenn.